Welcome back, students. So in this video lecture we will be continuing with the Taenia solium. So the Taenia solium is actually called as a pork tapeworm, and not a beef tapeworm. It is a pork tapeworm, and it occurs in the intestine of an infested man. Okay, so we will just before seeing the details of the egg, we will continue with the development or the life cycle of Taenia solium. This Taenia solium, once again, I'm just repeating to make you clear. Taenia solium, it is a pork tapeworm, and the Taenia saginata, it is a beef tapeworm. So in your syllabus you have to study only the pork tapeworm, which is Taenia solium. So don't forget the term or the species, that is a solium. Taenia solium, it is a pork tapeworm. So let's see the life cycle of or the development of Taenia solium. The life cycle of Taenia solium is completed in two hosts, mainly the man and pig. So the primary host is a man and the secondary host, it is a pig. Both are the vertebrate host. Then so the infested man, or inside the body of the infested man, inside the intestine, what happens, a copulation and the fertilization and the early development of this Taenia solium takes place inside the intestine. So this picture shows a portion of the human intestine. So inside the intestine, a adult tapeworm, it is present. It will grow and it completes its life cycle inside the intestine, and the development starts soon after the fertilization, and each fertilized egg develops into a six-hooked embryo called as a hexacanth embryo. So when a mature tapeworm develops a proglotid, this get detached. As you know that the tapeworm is having a head region and a neck region and a proglotid region, and in that proglotid there is the mature proglotid, premature proglotid, and there is a gravid proglotid, isn't it? And this gravid proglotid, what happens to that is that when it becomes ripe or sexually mature, it gets detached from the rest of the body part, and the ripe or the gravid proglotid, which is loaded with the eggs, pass out through the fecus of the infected man. And when these eggs reaches out, what happens is that this contaminated fecal matter, which is heavily loaded with this gravid proglotid, will be fed by the, or accidentally may be fed by a pig. And so as you can see in this picture, there is a branch uterus containing the egg, which is completely loaded with proglotid or the eggs, and this contaminated eggs, when gets inside the body of a pig, what happens is that these eggs develops into a hexacanth embryo. You can see here it is a encysted hexacanth embryo. So this is the embryonic stage with the six hooked. You can see the six hook here. and it is protected by a hard shell or the capsule. And this hexacanth together with the embryonic membrane is called as a oncosphere. So this 6-hooked egg together with this embryonic membrane, which is a protective covering of this egg, is called as a oncosphere. So this is called as a oncosphere. Okay, so this part, it is actually the egg part, and together with the covering it is called as a oncosphere. So this is the hexacanth embryo. It is called as a hexacanth embryo because it contains 6 hooks, and inside when it reaches the intestine or the digestive system of a pig, what happens is that this outer covering, so when this proglottid reaches the external or reaches the external environment, mainly the soil, so the soil will be contaminated with this fecal matter, and if the soil in the soil, the proglottid and the uterus actually disintegrates. This part actually gets disintegrated, and the embryonic egg reaches when it is fed by, and when this contaminated soil along with the fecal matter it is fed by the pig, the eggs reaches the intestine of a pig. So that is the transfer from a human to a pig. Then what happens after that? This embryonic egg has a highly resistant covering, as you can see here, and this actually, with the help of this covering, they remain alive for the long period, and if they are not undergo the further development, or they are able to undergo the further development only if enters into a pig, otherwise they get disintegrated in the soil, or they will stay alive inside this oncosphere till it gets into the body of a pig. So oncospheres get into the pig when the pig happens to eat the human soil, human contaminated fecal contaminated soil, and inside the pig stomach their embryonic membrane or the oncosphere shell, this oncosphere shell gets dissolved by the action of the gastric juice of this pig intestine. Okay, and thus what happens, thus the hexacanth embryo frees out the actual egg or the egg from the oncosphere. Okay, this embryo, it's set free and it clings to, as you can see here, there are the hooks are present, and it get clinged to the walls of the intestine of this pig, and actually then along with the blood it moves and it reaches the muscle of the pig. So I'm just going it very slowly just to make you understand how the cycle is taking place. So this hexacanth embryo gets released with the help of the gastric juice which is present in the intestine of the pig, and this hexacanth embryo with the help of these hooks gets clinged to the wall of the intestine, and sometimes with the heavy flow of water, heavy flow of the blood, it can pass through the blood, it can reaches, or it just actually bores into the wall of the intestine and it reaches the bloodstream. So it is a minute sized structures, this hexacanth embryo, these are the minute sized structures, and they bore into the blood and they reaches the bloodstream, and through the bloodstream they just flow, and along with the blood flow they will just flow and reaches the muscle, and inside the muscle they actually remains intact. Okay, so the blood carries it to the voluntary muscles of the tongue, neck, shoulder, thigh, etc. So through the blood, this embryo can reach, hexacanth embryo can reach every part of the pig's body. Okay, so in this voluntary muscles of the pig, the hexacanth embryo actually loses the hooks. So in this diagram, it's clear it's a portion of a muscle in which you can see the hexacanth embryo, and now this hexacanth embryo is not having the hooks, and now it's called as a cysticercus. Okay, so it actually imbies fluid from this muscle, and it becomes a bladder like structure, and it gets encysted inside the, or it gets deposited inside the muscle. Actually it grows into a fluid filled bladder called as a cysticercus cellulose, or the bladder worm, or this is called as a bladder worm. And this cysticercus, soon what happens, it secretes a cyst surrounded. You can see here, this is a cysticercus, a single cysticercus. And what happens if this, so before so now the muscle and the involuntary muscles and all the other regions may be infested by this cysticercus, and this muscle of the pig, when accidentally reaches the human, it again gets converted into the next stage. So if we eat the improperly cooked muscle of this pig, what happens, it again, this cysticercus reaches the body of the man. So this heavily infested the pig muscle with this cysticercus is called as a measly pox. Hope you have heard this in detail in your lower classes. So it is called as a measly pox. MEASLY, measly pox. So this term is very important, you just keep in mind, measly pox. And this cysticercus, this soon secretes a cyst surround it, and then it walls gets thickened, and the one side of it undergoes a invagination, as you can see here. An invagination of the inpushing appears, and it goes larger, and its tip or the rostrum or the hook or the suckers develop first, and this form of the embryonic scolex is called as a proscolex. Okay, so this is the picture, and from this this invaginated scolex attached to the intestinal wall, and it gets developed into the adult tapeworm. So once again, let's see with this diagram. So this is invagination which is taking place in the cysticercus. Then this cysticercus with the proglottis inverted. You can see here there is an invagination which is taking place, and then the scolex, a proscolex develops. So again what happens, again the exvagination takes place, it comes up, and then from that the evaginated scolex arise with all the structures of a adult scolex. You can see here, we can see a neck bud here, then there's strobiler, you can see here strobiler, so the segmentation, a false segmentation you can see here, then the head region. So this is what happens, and this is a simple diagram that you can see here. This is a simple diagram. You can just either draw any of these three diagrams, any one. So this diagram will be the better for you to draw. Then the fully formed cysticercus remain actually dominant in the voluntary muscles of the pig, and it can undergo the further development only if reaches into the body of a man. So when it is when uncooked pig meat is taken up by the man, then the transmission is converted from the pig to the man. So the transmission of the cysticercus to a new human host occurs through the meat of the pig, and the pig's meat infested with the live cysticercae is called as a measly pox. And the transmission of the cysticercae occur when the man eats improperly cooked may sleepwalk, and during this a large number of cystic circus gets into the stomach of the human, and